So Louisiana is the first state in the United States of America to have surgical castration as a legal penalty for child sex offenders. You heard that correct. Governor Jeff Landry just signed what they call Act 651 into state law in the great state of Louisiana, where I reside. This is something that I was familiar with while I was in prison, because they used to talk about it in prison, that some of the inmates who were convicted of SA charges or hard R word charges, or, you know what I mean, messing with juveniles and kids, they could opt out to have chemical castration. That's what they call it. And so some of them would opt out of, being able to still have pleasure sexually so that they can get out of prison early. Or that some of them said they really wanted to change. They couldn't control it. So the psychiatrists or the mental health workers inside the prisons, after they would talk to them and they would go to these classes, they would be able to opt out. And, you know what I mean? Part of getting out on parole, these dudes would be able to, have chemical castration. Well, according to Act 651 in the state of Louisiana now, chemical castration is not just going to be for male offenders, but it's also going to be for female offenders. And that's something to think about, because now you've seen a large proportion of female offenders who are messing with children under the age of 13. It's very sad. It's a very disturbing trend, actually. And you see it happening, especially with people who are in the education field, right? They're teachers. They're educators and substitute teachers, a bunch of, different ways. You just recently had one thing go viral where they call them this stud lady who goes to do substitute teacher work. She's looking at another young female student talking about, oh, the shorty's all into me, the short. This is an adult talking like a moron. But anyway, it's made for people like her. Even though she's a female who identifies as a male, if she gets caught or involves herself, or anybody like that involves themselves with messing with juveniles in the state of Louisiana, the jury or the judge, if you're convicted or if you plead guilty, they can sentence you to chemical castration. So my question to my audience is this: do y'all think chemical castration is something that is unconstitutional, or is it something that you support? Do you think you wish your state and your governor would sign such an act as Act 651, the state of Louisiana, into law in your state? It's something to think about. Listen, we have to do a better job as a society to protect the children in our society. Children are the most vulnerable people we have in our society, as well as the elderly. And we have to do a better job of protecting them and having laws in place that protect them, and having laws in place that have penalties for people who prey on the most vulnerable people in our society. You could say what you want about Governor Jeff Landry, whether you like him or not. I think he did a phenomenal thing when he signed this act into law. Somebody's got to take a stand for children. And if you're involving yourself in sex offenses, there's got to be some kind of repercussions. And wait, hold up. Furthermore, if an offender gets sentenced to chemical castration and they refuse to accept it, the state has the option of increasing the penalty of their jail and prison sentence. That's right. So they can say, hey, look, I'm not doing it. I'm not taking it. No problem. That 15-year sentence that we gave you just turned to 30. If you still don't get it, we'll give you another 30. And so you'll basically spend the rest of your life in prison, which is fine by the state of Louisiana, because that means you'll die in prison and you won't be able to harm an innocent child. So now you have also a lot of opponents to this Act 651, and they're complaining, saying it's unconstitutional, and it goes into the realm of excessive punishment, cruel and unusual punishment. I've been in prison. I know what cruel and unusual punishment is. And getting a harsh sentence is not cruel and unusual punishment. That's actually, called justice, right? So when you commit a crime such as SX, you know what I mean? SA word, and you do it to someone who's under 13 years old, you deserve the state gives you. My only issue, and I got to be honest with y'all, I do have one issue, just one issue alone. We don't always get it right. The judicial system does not always get it right. Sometimes they convict people of crimes and they're really innocent. So bear with me, y'all, bear with me. My only problem is I want to make sure that the state knows that they know that the evidence is just that strong and solid. And if I'm sitting on a juror, right, and I have to issue out a punishment to someone who's possibly going to get chemical castration, I might have to know that I know that this person's guilty. I just will. Because listen, like I said, we get it wrong. Sometimes we convict innocent people. Now, does that happen all the time? No, but it does happen. And one innocent person receiving a harsh penalty such as chemical castration, it would be devastating to that person. Of course, you wouldn't care about it because it ain't you. But if you're an innocent person or innocent person's family, you don't want to see that happen to your loved one. So that's my only issue with that. I think if the state is going to issue out that sentence, they have to know that they know. In other words, the victim has positively identified you. There's more than one person who positively identifies you. And even more so than that is DNA evidence, because DNA evidence has freed innocent people from these type of charges. And it has also convicted people later who got away with these charges. DNA is... when the DNA is left, and listen, when a case like this comes up, I think a case like this, more than one lab should perform DNA analysis. That's just my opinion, because that's what's at stake. So why not use the taxpayers' money to pay for 2 or 3 DNA analysis tests to be certain that we know that this person is the person who performed this horrible crime before we issue out a sentence of chemical castration. This is just some thoughts I'm having. This is something that just happened, and I'm curious to know what y'all think. Would you support this in your state? Seriously, it's a serious discussion I would like to get started in the comments section. Would you support your governor signing an act similar to the one in Louisiana into law in your state? And if not, why are you against this? You know what I mean? Like I said, I gave you the one reason, the one issue I would have with it, but that would not deter me from being a supporter of this bill. I'm a supporter of it. I think it's a good thing. I'm glad the state of Louisiana has issued it, because the reality is there's consequences to crimes that people commit. And some of the worst crimes that are being committed in our communities are SXSA charges, right? Hard R word charges. These are some of the worst crimes that people commit. And there should be a stiff penalty and punishment for people who commit these types of crimes. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on Act 651, signed into law by Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry. And it is now going to be on the table as a penalty for anybody who is charged with a SX crime against someone who is under the age of 13. And just to reiterate, it will apply to male or female offenders. Thanks for watching the Pen and the Shank. Give me a like and subscribe to the most unusual and unique crime and prison-related experience on all of YouTube. Let's get it.